Hey everybody, we are in day 241 in our Bible reading plan, Job 26 through 29 and Psalm 28. And it's going to be all Job today. He's answering his friends in the first two chapters and then kind of doing a closing comment. In fact, after a couple more chapters, 31, after this section of Job's talking, we're going to move to Elihu and then to God's response. So I know in the middle it can kind of feel like same old, but I think to a certain degree it's a reminder that seasons of pain drag on. And they're hard, and there's no quick fix, and there's no quick turnaround. And even reading it sometimes feels like, is this ever going to change? And that's how sometimes I felt with situations that are in my life that I don't want. And so let that encourage you that there is an end. It's coming. And sometimes when you least expect it or how you least expect it. I wrote this for a big idea for today's reading. The better understanding of God's power you have, the more likely you are to turn to him even when it hurts, which I know even as I wrote it this morning, I came up with these ideas maybe a year ago, but even as I rewrote it this morning and was reflecting on it, I thought, is it really God's power that make us turn to him, or is his goodness? And I really believe it is God's power when you know that there's a God who can do something about your situation. I mean, of course you can be mad or frustrated or disappointed when he allows pain to come to your life, but ultimately, the more you believe in his power and his ability to change things, and he has power, the more, by the way, that's the truth about who God is, then the more you are likely to turn to him in pain because he can change your situation. And so we see a lot of those types of statements in today's reading with this book. Like, let me just, some of it reminded me of the disciples in the boat in the storm when they said, even the waves and the wind obey him. Chapter 26, towards the end of the chapter, he says, the pillars of heaven tremble and are astounded at his rebuke. By his power, he stilled the sea. By his understanding, he shattered Rahab. By the wind, the heavens were made fair. The winds and the waves obey him. That is in the New Testament when we see Jesus stilling the storm, and maybe you are in a storm that needs to be stilled. He goes on, chapter 27, as God lives, and we know he does, who has taken away my right, and the Almighty who has made my soul bitter. As long as my breath is in me and the Spirit of God is in my nostrils, my lips will not speak falsehood. Be careful what you say when you're in pain, and I certainly have had my share of accusing God of things that are not true, and may God forgive us for that. And so it is the Almighty that gives us breath, that speaks to us even in our pain. And so he sums up chapter 28, the last verse really sort of sums up the stance that we ought to take. Behold, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to turn away from evil is understanding. Many in Scripture have written about that, the fear of the Lord being wisdom. We know Solomon wrote about it in Proverbs, and you just finished reading we're in the middle of the Proverbs now, we just finished reading the Proverbs, and I record these a little bit later, so my timing is a little bit off, but all this to say, James wrote about wisdom. We see it throughout Scripture that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Paul taught on it, and then we get to chapter 29. He says he's lamenting, "Oh, that I were in my prime again, when the Almighty was yet with me." And what Job does not see clearly is that the Almighty is still with him, but he's going to find out soon that all of his suffering has not been in vain, that God has been in control and continues to be in control. And that is the truth, even in your life. And so if you're hurting right now, turn to him. He has the power to change your circumstances, and he's good, and he loves you. Love you guys too.